This video will describe the ArcMap environment. Now, for starters, looking at this environment, you'll see that it doesn't look too intimidating. Matter of fact, it probably looks a lot like stuff that you worked with in the past. Don't be fooled, because the reason being is that GIS software, it has a very unique way of storing data and analyzing data, which you're going to find out in subsequent videos, but it is very user-friendly. Now, from the top down, describing what makes up the ArcMap environment, you'll see at the very top we have menus, and you're going to say, oh wow, I've never heard about that before. Menus, wow. Okay, I had to mention that because you'll see that just below the menu options here, there are a series of tools that are identified by buttons. Now, when you click on a button, you get an instant response. Like for instance, when I go over here to zoom in, okay, I click on the zoom in tool, and even though there's nothing to zoom in on at this point, everybody knows about the zoom in tool. See, there's a kind of an immediate response from the software when it comes to a tool that's available. However, though, when you're getting back to menus, when it came to what is available, with a menu, it often takes two different actions to make something happen. Like say, for instance, if I go to selection and I go to select options, okay, and then I have some things I can do here. It took me at least two different actions to get over here and do something. So with menus, it just takes a little bit more attention or energy to do something versus with tools here. Now, in regards to the tools, you're going to see that now I'm going to just move the cursor around here, and then I move it along, and look at that. All of a sudden we see the icon for the cardinal direction icon. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag down. And by the way, as you're watching this, if you say, hey, wait a minute, my toolbars, the buttons here looks a little different than what I'm seeing here, don't worry. That just means that you had a colleague, friend who was pulling up other tools and stuff like that and didn't close them down. No big deal. Now, here we see a toolbar. And this toolbar has a variety of toolbar is called tools, okay? Great name for it. You're going to see that these are some very basic operations that people use again and again. Like for instance, a zoom in, zoom out. We got a pan tool here, so that way you can move around and stuff like that. Things that you're used to doing. And so you're going to see that this is a toolbar. Why? Because it's based around operations that are very, very common. Now I'm going to bring toolbar back up again. See, I could take it up, or if I want to, then again I can pull it back down again. Or, hey, you know something? I think I want to have it embedded over here. Look at that. You can actually move it over to the side if you want to. You're going to see that there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to the design of the ArcMap user environment. So you have a lot of options there. And let me drag this back over again. There you go. Now, by the way, one other thing to say about ESRI software in general, and by the way, I'm going to click on the select elements button here just so I get my arrow back, is that when it comes to ESRI software, there's typically 2 to 3 different ways that you could get to an operation. And so you might say, hey, by the way, I'd like to do something going this route. And then a friend of yours will say, no, 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 I like to use this other way of doing things. In the end, it all gets done, and you get to kind of pick and choose your style of how you do things. That's kind of nice. Now, when it comes to other toolbars, I'm going to go over here to Customize, and you'll see Toolbars as an option, and wow, look at that. Now you've got a whole bunch of tools that are available to you. And let's say I'm working with GPS data this day, and so I say I would like to use GPS tools, and there they are. And so it's as simple as that. Now, one thing I have to tell you about toolbars that might be a little frustrating to you is that it depends upon the amount of functionality of in regards to the license that you're running when it comes to your software, that and also the extensions that were purchased. Is that even though you might see toolbars, it doesn't mean that you have 100% of everything. You may or you may not. But if you suddenly click on something and you say, hey, wait a minute, that toolbar isn't like really showing me a lot of stuff, it could be an issue of just simply contacting ESRI and purchasing some additional functionality. And again, they'll be more than happy to work with you. Now, I go over here to customize one more time, and I go to toolbars, and you'll see that GPS is checked. And now if I click on that check, and away it goes. So you've got that way of getting to your tools, but also, by the way, one quickie way of doing it is here in the GUI, the kind of the gray area. If you right click there, look at that. It's all there, just ready to go. So you see, nice and user friendly. Now, some other things to mention in general is as we're going down, you're going to see that this is the data view. And as I'm making these figure eights with my arrow right here, you're going to see that down on the lower right-hand side, it's changing numbers and it says unknown units. GIS software really, really likes it when software has geographic location. Right now, what you're seeing there, it's a surrogate coordinate system, just because it needs some way of referencing location. So we're going to get into that a little bit later on in other videos. But this is the data view. And over here we have the table of contents. And this is where you're actually going to be dropping in data for management purposes. And by the way, there's all sorts of kinds of data that you can put within here. And so like a table of contents in a book, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be dropping in the data, and you get to sort of move them around and order them and do all sorts of really good things. But this is sort of a management system right here that helps you manage what you see over here in the data view. Now, just some other things to note is that you'll see up here, there are a couple of interesting icons. Say, for instance, there's one here called Arc Toolbox when you're, again, looking at all the different operations that are embedded within this software. If I click on this little red toolbox here and give it a second, you're going to see that there's a series of toolboxes that have all sorts of operations that are provided for you. Again, not to get too deep into that in this video, but just so you know, this is another major way for you to get to GIS operations. And also, you're going to see that there's another icon that is right over here called Catalog. And when I click on that, it provides me sort of this data tree environment if I want to work with my data. And that we'll be working with more in subsequent videos also. And with that, the next thing to look into is, I'm going to close this by the way, is how do we bring data into this environment?